All right, it is 7:01, so I'm going to get us started. Welcome everyone to Get Involved in Government Youth Edition. Just to introduce myself a little, my name is Peggy Lowe, and I am currently a junior at Westford Academy, as well as a member of the League of Women Voters here in Westford. The main purpose of our event is to help harness students' passion to make a difference on a variety of levels, whether that be in our local communities, state, or even national. We want to showcase the many ways you can become effective advocates and engaged citizens today, even if you are not of voting age. But before we continue, I wanted to bring your attention to the Massachusetts League of Women Voters student video contest that is taking submissions right now. All high school students can submit a 30-second video that will be entered into the contest and have a chance at winning prizes. So we will link that in the chat right now. And back to this event tonight, we have prepared a series of panels and panelists, all to help guide students on how to get involved. From campaign workers, elected officials, and even youth advocates themselves, it is our hopes that you can leave this webinar with a broader understanding of the many ways you can get involved. So without further ado, in celebration of Women's History Month, we have this pre-recorded video from U.S. Representative of Massachusetts' 3rd Congressional District, Congresswoman Lori Trahan.
Perhaps someday I'll be casting my vote for one of you, or using a breakthrough technology or medicine that you helped invent. What I know is this: better decisions are made when more women are at the table, and we need many, many more women in the room making those decisions. Your generation is sparking change across the globe, more effectively than any generation before you, and I'm so excited to see where your work takes us. I wish you all the best. Stay safe, stay strong, and happy Women's History Month.
Ms. Cole, would you mind replaying that? I think the audio was off for the majority of it.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Lori Trahan. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this incredible event. I can't begin to tell you how thrilled I am to see so many of you staying engaged in our political process and actively advocating for what you believe in. The work you're doing is so important, and I speak from personal experience when I say that you have the ability to create real, enduring change. I have 2 young daughters. Grace is at the day school and Caroline at Miller. And at early ages, I impressed upon them what my mother told me: our voices matter. You clearly got that message too, which is what fills me with hope and optimism. Perhaps someday I'll be casting my vote for one of you, or using a breakthrough technology or medicine that you helped invent. What I know is this: better decisions are made when more women are at the table, and we need many, many more women in the room, at the table, making those decisions. Your generation is sparking change across the globe, more effectively than any generation before you, and I'm so excited to see where your work takes us. I wish you all the best. Stay safe, stay strong, and happy Women's History Month.
Ms. Cole, I think you're still muted. Your audio is still on, I think. Okay, thank you. Transitioning to our next panel, Joined with us live is State Representative Jim Arciero. Representative Arciero has been a champion in the fight to provide COVID-19 retirement credit to essential public sector workers. He has also sponsored a number of bills to provide improvements to the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund and providing relief to employers and workers in the Commonwealth. In his work, he has seen numerous young people get involved in state-level internships and become effective advocates for a variety of issues. And so please join me in welcoming Representative Arciero.
Thank you, Peggy. It's quite an honor to be here, and thank you to the League for this wonderful event. I know it's going to be very informative for everybody across generations of what it really means to volunteer and get involved. I want to give a shout out to my another colleague in municipal government, Chris Sanders, and who's going to be a panelist later. He's a friend and a great public servant, and also Tobias Bluestein, who's very active on environmental issues and had numerous conversations and was able to participate on a number of different events, including a climate change action event in the center of town just, I believe, about a year ago. And also one of my former interns, Derek Lowe, who's a panelist as well. And Derek is a superstar in our office. He was an intern twice and worked for Congresswoman Trahan as well. I would say that it's so very important, especially at an early age, to think a little bit about service and think about how you can, leave your community a little bit better than you found it. And at a young age myself, growing up in Westford, I was very much involved in the Westford Academy Community Service Team, as well as scouting. I was an Eagle Scout here in Westford. And I think some of the things that I looked to when I started to get interested in politics and in government, essentially was when I went to college and I went to UMass Dartmouth. And when I was there, I got very involved in student government. But I did my first internship. And I think internships are across the board, whether in high school, whether in college, or even afterwards, very important to really get your feet wet and sort of understand what you're looking for in that particular role. For myself, I think the first part about it is it's educational. You learn the sort of nuts and bolts about government. When I interned, I was in Washington, D.C. for Congressman Barney Frank at the time. And we obviously worked in the nuts and bolts in government, learned a lot about how the legislative process worked. It was also practical because I was a political science major. And because of my internship, that really led me to want to pursue elected politics, working to represent my community. And I did that on the college level, but also eventually brought that back to Westford from my roots as a high school student that was involved in a number of different community service organizations. I think another piece of it is inspiration. What can be achieved? For myself, I was 18 years old and I was at the United States Capitol. And for that, it really inspired me to do bigger things. It made me look back at my community as something that's a lot smaller than it seemed at one point. And things seem to be a little bit more manageable. And from working in the United States government and then coming down to volunteer in various boards and committees before I even thought about running for office, I think a big part of that was the grassroots approach and those pieces, educational pieces, the practical pieces, and also what was inspirational. But I also think being flexible. And I think so much pressure sometimes is put on us to be experts in a particular field or think that you necessarily have to go into something that you major in or you have to choose your major now, so you need to figure that out. But I think being flexible and find out what you like, maybe that leads to a whole other avenue you never thought about. So I think that's really very important.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Arciero. And what is one advice you would give your younger self before having entered the political sphere?
It's a great question, Peggy. I would say stay engaged. What inspires you? What are you passionate about? I think that you can find a lot easier than when I was a kid. You can find a lot of other individuals through social media, through clubs and organizations, similar interests and things that are achievable, and then kind of seek that out and figure out how you can volunteer. And that leads me to my second really important piece, and it's volunteering. I think to truly be somebody who really is inspired by the work that you do, I think you have to try a lot of different things. Volunteering is a tremendous educational tool that I found. I think a lot of the volunteering that I did on the local level, whether that be through scouting, whether that be through community service, and even as a young adult, I found volunteering and the friendships that I made were long lasting. And for me, politically, it was volunteering on campaigns. So I was involved in a lot of campaigns, whether it be individuals I knew personally here in Westford that were running for the Board of Selectmen, the school committee, or involved in the finance committee, or all the other clubs and organizations and boards, throughout Westford and through communities. I think volunteering and putting some time into things that you're passionate about and you're excited about. But also volunteering, you can learn what you're not excited about, and I think that's important too. I mean, it's one educational journey, and you have to do it by being engaged. And if you're not checked in, I would encourage you to check in, and look to things that are passionate, that makes you excited and passionate.
Yeah, thank you so much, Representative Arciero. It was really eye-opening hearing about your early experiences in politics, and I'm sure that many of those in the audience, as well as myself, hope to relate to that one day.
Well, I will say, Peggy, thank you for this wonderful event. Over the years, I think we've had conversations offline. I've had a little over 50 interns, a good portion of them being from Westford over my years in office, in my terms in office. And I guess I would announce to the league and to Westford that Peggy is going to be my first intern of 2021. So I look forward to working with you, Peggy.
Thank you so much. And I really look forward to working with you as well.
Thank you.
If you'd like to find out more about being an intern or about issues on the Hill, we will be putting Representative Arciero's contact information in the chat right now. And thank you again for joining us tonight.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Moving on to our next panel, we have panelists Nicole Vardas and Derek Lowe joined with us. Nicole Vardas has worked on numerous political campaigns, including serving as Deputy Digital Director on the Ed Markey re-election Senate campaign. She also currently works as a digital strategist at the More Perfect Union. Derek Lowe, on the other hand, has been very involved in student government. He currently serves as the Asian American Pacific Caucus Chair for College Democrats, and has also been involved on the Students for Pete Buttigieg at George Washington University. So please join me in welcoming Nicole and Derek. To start us off, can each of you tell us a little bit about how young people can make a difference by either volunteering on campaigns or getting involved in government? Starting with Nicole, please.
Sure. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you to the League for inviting me. Super excited to be here. So young people, so I just graduated college. I got started in campaigns when I was probably in high school volunteering. And what I've seen is that young people run campaigns. Young people are the driving force behind the political movement in our country. And especially I'm a progressive, and the driving force behind progressivism in our country. And so whether that means that you are in college and you start a college political group or just get involved with your college political group, whether that means that you help out phone banking for a local candidate, a national candidate, there are so many ways for young people to get involved. And what I saw personally, so my team on the Ed Markey campaign, we were all a bunch of like young 20-year-olds, just graduated from college, up in high levels. I was the deputy digital director. The deputy comms director was the same age as me. And then we had this army of fellows and interns who were all high school age, college age, even middle school age, who were making hundreds of thousands of phone calls across the state for Ed Markey, who were, not knocking on doors, but who were text banking, who were doing the bulk of the work behind this campaign and just really energizing everybody. And that's how we were able to succeed, is just this infusion of youth, is what took like a 70-year-old man who everybody kind of thought had no chance to win re-election. It was the young climate activists, it was the young people who were enthused about racial justice, economic justice, who lined up behind our team and were able to push us over the finish line. And I'm super grateful too. I had my own team of interns and fellows who were, again, all college age, high school age, who are doing incredible work, and just have done super amazing things, from producing videos, graphic design, just incredible work in the political sphere. And no matter what your skill set is, there is a place for you on a campaign. So even if maybe you're too shy to go phone bank, there's a place for you doing digital organizing. If you're, not the best online, then phone banking and canvassing. But there's always a place for you on campaigns or in whatever excites you. If that's climate organizing, there's a place for you. You just need to get in touch with the right people.
Yeah, I would really echo a lot of what Nicole has said, particularly as someone who kind of would rather do more behind the scenes work. As Nicole is saying, there's definitely so many different opportunities to get involved. I'm thinking back to when I was an intern at the State House, and there was the state senator who came and spoke and talked about, there's kind of like your activist, campaigner, but then you also have your organizer, right? You kind of have two sides. You kind of have different aspects there, and it's so critical that it's so essential that you need both parts there. But I guess with my own experience, I think the path I took was more starting about being involved within government itself. So as Representative Arcera said earlier, so I started out, through WA has our Junior Job Shadow Day. So having been involved, having been interested in politics, I said, I'll email representatives, see if there's an opportunity I could do the Job Shadow program for that day. And then me, along with two other WA juniors, job shadowed them for that day. We had the opportunity to kind of go and sit on a committee hearing. I believe we were able to meet the Speaker of the House, then Speaker DeLeo at the time. And then the following summer, I graduated. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I reached out to a representative, said, would it be possible for me to intern? And it kind of led to 2 summers interning, being able to really do what I was really interested in, which was public service, giving back to the community, whether it was addressing constituent concerns, writing letters to committee chairs, so that way the representatives' bills that we're supporting and advocating for the people in this town would get to the floor and be able to be implemented, passing the law and enacted to support, the community that, I've grown up in and, love and things like that. And then, having the opportunity to then intern for Congresswoman Trahan the following year, and then being able to do that and kind of expanding who I was working with in many ways on a federal level, right? But I think what I would really emphasize is that, and I think Representative Arcera has emphasized this too, and that he's had 50 plus interns during his time serving our district, is that elected officials, they want us to be involved. I think a lot of people, they see it, they see politicians in negative connotation, and you can have your opinion, but this is not an area you should avoid. I think the fact that Nicole and I are here talking to you really speaks to that. We are young people are wanted. There's a tremendous opportunity and a huge need for that. So that's what and literally just reaching out. I remember Nicole and I had mentioned this previously. People would literally DM campaign accounts and be like, "Are you are there opportunities to get involved?" And the answer was yes, there always are. And that's what I would really leave you with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of specifically, what impacts have you been able to achieve as a young person in politics, both of you?
Okay, I'll start again. So I, like I said, got started volunteering in high school. I volunteered on the Bernie Sanders campaign. And then I became a field organizer on a congressional campaign when I was in college, and then graduated and took a job on Ed Markey's campaign. So most of my experience has been doing electoral campaigning. There are so many impacts that you can have doing that, both like the very tangible things, like my team helped re-elect a United States senator. There is somebody in office because of the work that we did, because of the work of me and a whole bunch of 20-year-olds and a whole bunch of teens and people online and on their phones, on their computers. We are the reason that he is in office. He's putting forward legislation on climate justice, on housing justice, on all these different things, right? So that's one thing. I've also, the congressional campaign that I worked on, unfortunately, we lost in a recount, although we have a terrific congresswoman now, Lori Trahan. But even on a campaign that loses, you still have a really strong impact on the people that you talk to. So as a field organizer, as field organizers are mostly young people, because those are the people who have the energy to be able to do it and be kind of on all the time talking to people. You meet so many volunteers who have never gotten involved in the political process before and see you as like somebody who just became eligible to vote, getting involved in politics, and they're like, oh, well, this is something that I can do too. And that's something that people find really inspiring. And so I've had a number of volunteers who had never knocked on a door before, had never made a phone call before, didn't even, I mean, they like read the news, but that was it. And then after, they'll like still message me and be like, hey, like, how do I get involved with this campaign? Like, do you know any opportunities for me on Elizabeth Warren's campaign? How can I do this? And keep me up to date on what they've been doing. And so that's really inspiring. And then, I mean, apart from that, I would say one of the biggest areas for young people right now is going to be climate justice. In my opinion, we've seen that people in older generations have failed us. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping to do. What I'm hoping that other young people can do is unite behind these issues, climate justice, economic justice, and take on the leadership roles that people older than us have failed and step up for younger generations.
I think I would say from my involvement with students for Pete, it really helped develop a really strong network of some of my closest friends in college that I was able to talk to. We'd be like, oh, maybe there's this internship opportunity here you should consider applying to or whatever. But for me, you know, that commitment to the public service, being able to say, you know, I was able to help this constituent get this resolved, or, you know, us, you know, when it came to, like, for example, working to secure funding for the new playground at Forge Beach, right? You know, trying to deal with overcoming, you know, the governor's veto of that, for example, in those line items, right? You know, being able to see the product, see what we're able to achieve, I think it goes a long way. You know, feel very humble about it, but it goes a long way in, you know, being able to see what is achievable, even at a young age. You know, people say, you know, the youth is the future. I mean, the youth is now. It's the time to get involved. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your words of advice and sharing your experiences with us, Nicole and Derek. There are so many ways for students under voting age to get involved, just like you guys mentioned. You can advocate publicly by holding campaign signs, canvassing, or getting involved in campaigns, so much like you two have done. But there are also other ways to advocate from your home, whether that be phone banking or sending texts to legislators, holding them accountable, all sorts of ways to get involved. And so we are going to put a link to Mobilize, where you can find a variety of campaigns near you that need supporting and volunteers. All right, thank you so much. And with that, we're going to move on to the next panel. Joined with us next is School Committee Select Board Member Chris Sanders. Mr. Sanders has seen countless students at Westford Academy make a difference through their actions. He has witnessed first-handedly just how strong of an impact young voices can make on adults. From students advocating at town meetings to seeing them speak on behalf of issues that they're passionate about, Mr. Sanders is here to offer his experiences with us all. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Sanders.
Thank you, Peggy. It's really great to be here. It's such a cool event. So thanks to you. I know you've put a lot into this, and to the League of Women Voters, and it looks like a good turnout. So it's pretty exciting. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk. And it was great to hear from Nicole and Derek and Rep. Arciero too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'm going to move on to our first kind of question. Being on the school committee, obviously, could you tell us a little bit about your experiences working with students and other board members that affect the school?
Yeah, so like you said, we're on school committee. Our whole focus is the students in Westford, right? The entire educational experience from pre-K through 12th grade. And we're focused on making sure that the students have that best education, that best experience to make the adults they need to be in this world. So it would be, it'd be crazy not to want to have a student voice in that. And we do. Like, I really appreciate opportunities to work with and hear from students. So yeah, we're definitely paying attention to what the students are feeling and saying about the things happening in our schools. And there are distinct opportunities that students have had to work with the school committee. I guess the most obvious is we have 2 student representatives who sit on the school committee, right? They come to all of our meetings, and they can have a real impact. So they can weigh in. Sometimes they weigh in on the goings on at Westford Academy. They're Westford Academy students. So it's great. They're a connection. They tell us what we may not know going at Westford, not just Westford Academy, not just events, but often they kind of have their finger on the pulse of the student body in a way that we probably don't. And so they can provide that. I think back, I think some of our student representatives have used Facebook polls to, again, take the pulse of the student body on issues. So I'm trying to think back. I think issues such as school start times, graduation gown colors, when we were discussing that. I think maybe around the school mascot discussions, there have been those. So they come to us with information that we wouldn't normally have, which is, again, what are the students thinking about these issues? And so it's been a really good working relationship to have them. They come with energy, and something I think some people don't know, that actually may be news to a lot of people, is that per the Westford School Committee policies, it says the votes of the student representatives will be recorded, but non-binding. So our student representatives actually can vote. Now, I will say that this is a case where our practice has not matched our policy, and we haven't been in the practice of doing that, but it's something that I know the policy subcommittee is looking at, because we want them to feel like they have a vote. Now, again, it's a non-binding vote when it comes to the outcome of votes, but it gives you that sense of empowerment that you have that added voice. And so I think that's something we'll look at. I've had an opportunity to work with students on a number of different areas. The ones that come to mind for me, I've sat on the Westford Academy Challenge Success team, and we had student representatives on that. And again, I think, Challenge Success, whose whole purpose is to look at the well-being and the success of our students, and with a lens of what's best for them, what are the different paths to success, like getting their input on that was critical. We had a start time citizen action committee that we had 2 students on, Athena Lewin, who's a current student at WA, was one of them. And again, we're looking at making later start times potentially for our older students. And so we want to have that voice on the committee. Recently we finished up our superintendent search last night, as some of you may have seen. We had a preliminary screening committee that went over the resumes and packets of the applicants, and we didn't have a student, we had a recent alum, Ariella Fleischer. But again, it's that youth vote, it's somebody who can relate to what our students are going through. So those are a few examples of recent times that we've worked directly with students in pretty much an official capacity.
Yeah, for sure. And could you tell us a little bit about how you've seen students make a difference locally in the outcome of issues that affect them specifically?
Yeah, I think, you know, I said it before, we want to hear the student voice, and I think that comes in a lot of different flavors and levels. And so at one level, you know, we have our student reps, but not everybody's a student rep. We have 2 of those. But there are lots of opportunities to impact the business in front of the school committee. There's a lot of opportunities for the school committee to hear what the students and the youth in Westford are thinking. And so I just encourage people to look at the times that you may not even realize, you know, standing in line at Market Basket, talking to students. I'm listening to hear what they're thinking. Pre-COVID, I always wanted to hear what my kids' friends were thinking about things, you know, going on in their lives or going on at school. So those are like kind of the small examples of how you're going to hear or how students can make their voice heard. But the school committee takes tours every year of the schools to kind of see how things are running, to see, you know, what the buildings look like, maybe if there's new work being done. We always take an opportunity to try to talk to students when we're doing that, because there's something about also talking to the student when they're in that educational environment that I think, you know, is more powerful. So those are small examples, but then I think, you know, if you're really talking about students and youth having an impact on the business of Westford and the business before the school committee, I think it's about the youth showing up and making their voice heard. And so a number of ways that happens, right? One, maybe the most obvious, is come to the school committee meetings. When we're in person, come in person. Right now, join on Zoom. It can be pretty powerful when the students come. And so examples of that, last year, during budget season, we had students coming and making their pleas for Latin, right? How Latin helped them later on. We had former students coming about how it helped them in medical school, how having a foreign language that didn't focus so much on the diction and pronunciation and speaking, but more on the written, really helped some students that just didn't feel comfortable in those other classes. That made a difference. More recently, I look back to last summer and the events following the murder of George Floyd, and that's where I was blown away. That wasn't students raising their voices to be heard. That was students like getting involved in leading. They came to us, students with the Westford Coalition for Change, who I see is on here, some of our recent alums came to us and said, we need to talk, we need to be heard, and things need to change. There's things that aren't being talked about in Westford that need to be. And so as a school committee, we saw that moment, we saw the power of those voices, those young voices, and we let them lead us. So they helped us craft an event last summer, a listening event around racial justice, racial equity in Westford schools. And it was powerful. And that was really student. I mean, we helped them, but that was kind of student driven. And so to me, that was the best example of not just using your voice, but getting involved in the process and seeing the compromises that get made when you're trying to get a message out and move things along, but also how to lead adults as students.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Sanders. I know your experiences of working with students and just kind of showcasing how powerful young voices can be. That definitely resonated with me, as I'm sure with many of our audience tonight. So thank you so much for coming onto the panel tonight.
Thank you, Peggy. Keep it up.
And there are several ways that students themselves can testify before a board or voice their opinions at town meetings. So we will now send in a chat a link to the school committee website if you would like to learn more about ways that they're getting involved and how other students are doing so as well. And now we will transition to a pre-recorded segment about poll working from Westford Academy student Carter Purple, as well as our town clerk, Patty Doobie. Hi everyone. Up next, we have a panel that details some of the ways you can get involved even if you don't have the time for a lot of high commitment activities. So joined with us here today is Ms. Doobie and Carter. Ms. Doobie serves as our town clerk, and she has been in charge of all things town elections related, as well as working first-handedly with various town committee groups. Today, she will be speaking on ways students, especially those that are under voting age, that can get involved by volunteering, such as poll workers during election seasons. We're also joined here with Westford Academy student Carter Purple. Carter is someone who's very involved in his community, especially as an Eagle Scout. And today he will be speaking on behalf of his experience as a poll greeter to get a better sense of what the job may be like as a high school student. So welcome, Ms. Doobie and Carter, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm just going to get started with Carter. Why did you want to become a poll greeter in the first place?
So I've always been very interested in history and politics, and especially this year with this election, and not only the presidential election, but all the primaries and everything related to that. And it was frustrating to me that I would be missing, my birthday's on April 9th. It's frustrating to me that I'd be missing voting age by just a couple of months. So I wanted to think, okay, how else can I get involved and how else can I have an impact on this process? And so I had seen a commercial on TV about, like reaching out. They need poll workers, especially because of the pandemic. It's a lot of people who normally do it might have been hesitant to. And so I thought, this is a perfect way. It's one day. It's a great experience, I feel like. And so I reached out to the town, and I got a friend involved too. I got my friend Ben Molinaro, and we both went to the Abbott School, the 2 precincts there, and it was a great experience. But overall, I'd say the reason was I just was looking for a way to get involved. I want to major in history and possibly political science. So really, I feel like any way to get involved at my age is just a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And from your experience working at the polls, what did you most enjoy about being a poll greeter?
I would say just being part of the process. And like I said, being able to do it with a friend was really a great, made the experience a lot better. But also just being able to see the different types of people coming in and, practicing this right that people had to vote. It was kind of refreshing. People, old people, young people from all around town coming in, and I got to meet some people. I got to chat with them, and being able to feel like we were helping out and being part of the process. And at the end, our job was we greeted the people and directed them to which precinct within Abbott School. And at the end, we got to help take down everything also. So really being part of the process, I'd say, and being able to feel like I was having a hand in such a monumental occasion.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Carter. Next, we're going to move on to Ms. Doobie. So obviously as town clerk, you have seen several cases of young people getting involved, especially working the polls. So my question kind of is, how can others who might be interested in doing this sort of activity do so themselves? And how have you seen young people specifically get involved with these polls in their communities?
Well, you have a couple of history teachers at Westford Academy, Ms. Carney and Mr. Hughes, who are always in touch with the town clerk's office for the last 20 years that I've been there. Maybe not Ms. Carney that long. And they're always trying to promote their students' activities and asking if they can help out in the elections. The former town clerk before I was the assistant at that time, we always tried to accommodate that because it's a great learning experience. And typically the students are used as the greeter as Carter and Ben were. I have to mention that when Carter and Ben came in, they came into the town hall to ask me about it. They were so enthusiastic, I had to find a place for them. And this year was particularly daunting trying to find election workers because of the COVID situation. And the whole year was unusual just because we had so many mail-in votes, which typically we don't have. I did use another student. Actually, he was the son of one of my coworkers to help us when we had to do counting. Carter, you and Ben might, or anybody might be able to take advantage of helping us with that, because it's my understanding the town election will be coming, and that's going to be a lot of mail-in as well. So we may use you for other things besides being a greeter at the Abbott School. The state does say that 16 and 17-year-olds can work as poll workers. I can only have 2 per precinct if there was some interest in that. The shifts are 8 hours and can be long. And, you know, if you don't have a lot of people coming in, it can make for a long day, but that depends on you as well. Now, we do want people to get involved. We want students to come and learn the process. I can't say enough that what Carter said is great. What he said is exactly what we want to get from the students and for them to get out of the experience. They could come see me. They can send me an email. They can go online and there's a citizens activity form and fill it out, and I will get it and I can contact them. We'll try and do whatever we can. There's a lot of pre-election work. People don't realize that it's quite a lot of work to put an election together. And for instance, we are starting now for the May election that's going to happen for the town. That's a town election. It would probably be a much smaller turnout than the presidential election, which is always huge, but just as important. And quite frankly, in many ways, much more fun because it is local people and you may know them. So we welcome it. I have talked to Ms. Carney the last few elections. We tried to get some students together. We had some, even if you can come for an hour or 2, it's helpful. And we work it out. We try and work with each student on how they can do it. And I welcome it.
Yeah, for sure. And are there any other volunteer related activities or opportunities that are available for youth, students related to election day or just kind of working the polls?
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't mention we also had town meetings. Okay, and for town meeting, we need election workers as well. We had a really large town meeting, the annual town meeting of 2019, when we were still all together, also at the Abbott School, and it went into 2 rooms. So that made it interesting. That had greeter possibilities, and we did have someone doing that. Town meeting is a whole different process, but equally as important as an election. It decides the town's business, and we can always use people. We can find students, we can find things for them to do, even in the preparation. If they wanted to come and see how we put the election together and helped out that way, we can do that as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Doobie and Carter, for taking the time to speak with us today about how rewarding and fulfilling poll working can be, especially for students who want to get involved. So if you're interested in volunteering, we're going to list some contacts in the chat below in case there were any further questions about signing up or how to get involved. So with that, we're going to transition onto our next panel. Okay, transitioning to our next panel, we are joined by Erica Cole. Ms. Cole has spent a great deal of effort exploring school-related issues, while she was on the Westford School Committee, and now she spends time researching other issues for fun. If you are not sure of what to think of an issue or how to defend your ideas, she is here to show us how to use data to explore these various topics and become more informed citizens. So please join me in welcoming Ms. Cole.
Hi, Peggy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm also excited to be talking about data, information. I'm a data nerd. It's possible that some of your viewers would claim that mantle as well, but even if they don't, even if you don't, I believe that, you know, the world happens, things happen. And if we are in very little happens that hasn't happened before, or that hasn't been studied in some way, or possibilities to deal with it haven't been studied in some way. The more informed we are, I believe, the better we are able to address what happened in the world. And doing so is kind of my version of what politics is. And that's what we're talking about tonight. So in my view, when we talk about politics, we talk about information. We have to acknowledge there is also misinformation. There is disinformation. The difference being misinformation is out there, people believe it, and it's not right. Disinformation is where people put things out there that are intentionally wrong and intended to mislead. Information is what you think it is. It's the stuff that's out there that is, you know, based more in reality. And the question is, how do you tell the difference? So what I try to do, and I think this is something that Westford Academy students do quite well, and may do instinctively, but it all really comes down to critical thinking. If you look at an article, listen to an audio or view a video, promulgating some sort of perspective or conclusion, what is incumbent on you and on me when I do this is to make sure that I agree that all of those particular supporting pieces of evidence actually lead to that conclusion. And if that happens again and again from a particular source, then I tend to start to have more confidence in that source. But even when I have confidence in a source, I will still apply that critical thinking because, you know, things happen. I'll just share a quick, interesting anecdote. I had a particular I have a particular interest in science, and there was this really interesting article in the New York Times Science section one time about nuns who had been in a particular cloister for decades. And the study was regarding whether, was looking at the nuns who had written essays to join that particular nunnery or whatever they call it in their 20s. And the study looked at which ones then had or didn't have Alzheimer's in their 80s or dementia. And what the journalist said was that, oh, look, the ones that had the most colorful language, the ones that had the most complex sentence structures, the ones that were particularly unique in the way they portrayed themselves in their 20s were the ones most likely to avoid dementia in their 80s. So clearly there's some genetic component. And I thought about that and I said, well, maybe not, right? It could be that, you know, those young nuns had a way of thinking that engaged their brain more and brought more blood to their brain and more oxygen to their brain and just nurtured it in a way that allowed them to avoid dementia. So it's just one example. Now, I still trust the New York Times Science section, which is where I read this, but I still apply critical thinking skills. And I think that's really my message to young people is to do that all the time. And determine who your trusted sources are. So I also want to talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts about what you can do right now. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. as the tickler, I'm going to show you one place where you can get more information even than what's normally available. And that is through what's the Freedom of Information Act at the federal level, and it's called the Massachusetts Public Records Act at our state level. But you can ask for information from any government entity and expect to get an answer, as long as it doesn't compromise things like privacy or law enforcement or national security, those type of things. You can expect to get insight into what your taxpayer dollars or your parents' taxpayer dollars are doing. That's just a tickler. I'm going to show you where you can go to for that. And as a hint, you've already met the lady who's going to help you do it. So let's see, let's start off. All right, so I'm hoping that you can see my screen. Yes, good, yay. So I just want to show you all the incredible wealth of information here. If you scroll over the top of westfordma.gov, you will see under government, there are innumerable numbers of boards that you might find interesting and that would really welcome your support, and that might apply to a particular passion of yours. There's just a couple here that I'm just going to point out because I've heard from Peggy that there are students at Westford Academy who care about certain issues, such as affordable housing, in terms of fairness, human rights, and all that. We do have an affordable housing committee that would certainly welcome any student participation and interest that is available. There's the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee for those of you who are interested in environmental issues. Interestingly, this committee is right now taking on the task of figuring out how Westford can get to zero emissions by 2050, which is a rather interesting thing. So if you're interested in that, contacting this committee and trying to find out more could be very interesting to you. Lastly, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And again, this is all about equality, avoiding discrimination, and that sort of thing. So I think hopefully this is something that would also be interesting to many of you, and you are welcome to click on any of these. Just showing you quickly what happens when you do that. You will always find some way to contact the people in that committee. This one has a contact us. It also has a live link to the chair. You can also find out information about EPA research, electric aggregation, things that are informative about climate change. Now getting back here, the last thing I wanted to show you, well, two things. One is if you go to the town manager's website, if you're interested in finding out what's going on around Westford, this is a terrific place to go look, as well as reading the town manager's newsletter. She happens to have a link right here about what's going on there, but I believe there's, town manager newsletters are also available over on the left-hand side. There's pages of very, very current information if you want to know what's going on in Westford there. And lastly, as promised, here's the tool that you can go to find out more information. If it's not here, but it was paid for by town dollars, you can go down and here is public records requests. You can click there and you can find out more about how to go about getting information from the town clerk if you haven't already gotten that somehow else. And then just real quickly, I thought I would also share, see if I can get this. You are all students, and so you may be interested in finding out more about Westford schools. And there's an enormous amount of information available under school and district profiles. I used this site a lot when I was on the school committee. It is just a wealth of information about Westford. And so what you do is you go to the school and district profiles within the Department of Education, and you look at public school districts, and let's see if I can get down there. I happen to know that since we start with W, we are number 499, which is pretty darn down there. Here we are. Very quickly, you can look, if you want to find out generally what's going on with our schools, there's lots of information, just general information. If you want to find out about yourself, your demographics, who you are, how many of you are in which grades, all that sort of thing, you can find out specifics here, and as well as lots of information in all of these links over at the side. You can find out about teachers, you can find about the finances of the schools, the assessments, that's MCAS stuff. And you can even find out about how we compare to other towns, which is this last one called DART over at the end. So I just thought that was all interesting stuff that you might be interested in. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up for all of you is that if you volunteer and you are at all intimidated about working with the adults who are already doing some of this, this important work, please don't be. I can't tell you enough how much adults seem to value young people. Just your perspective is different, your information is important. You are going to inherit the world when we are done with it. So it is extremely, it's not just that they're welcoming, it's they're embracing the youth voice. And so please don't be intimidated. Please feel free to reach out to any of the town boards or any of the greater issue advocacy agencies at the state level, the federal level. There is definitely a wonderful embracing of the youth voice, and you will be welcome. So, and that's it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Cole, for showing us all the ways we can use research data to better understand issues on a broader level, as well as your personal nun anecdote, which I very much enjoyed. If you enjoy being behind the scenes and arming others in your WA club with information, you can help them to successfully engage voters or even reach potential legislators. So in the chat, we will provide a few links that you can access for more information, including the one that Ms. Cole shared with us just a few minutes ago. So now on to our last panel for tonight, we have our youth panelists. There are several WA clubs that you can take advantage of and have them as opportunities to get involved. So I'm going to introduce some of our panelists for tonight. Our first youth panelist is Hannah Dittmars. Hannah's is part of the Human Rights Club and GSA Club at Westford Academy, where she has planned several events for them. She's also very involved in social justice work outside of WA, and today she will be touching on some of those experiences. So welcome, Hannah.
Thank you. First off, I'd like to thank Peggy for inviting me and including me in something like this. I completely admire your efforts, Peggy. And I'm really excited to share a lot of my experiences with you all and hopefully inspire any other youth who are watching how they can get involved as well. So first off, as Peggy said, my name is Hannah Dittmars. I am currently a senior at Westford Academy. And I think that one of the main things that compelled me to really get involved in, the clubs I'm involved in at WA, as well as some of my own individual initiatives, include my background and identity. So I am a Chinese American, and I was actually adopted when I was 1 year old, and both of my parents are white. So I think that as I was growing up, a lot of my identity and a lot of the things that I experienced, in WPS as well as around my community, have really shaped my values and really shaped the views and, my perspective as a whole. I know that something that I always take as my main motivator and the main thing that got me into social justice and all these progressive movements is definitely middle school in the 2016 election. During that time, there was a lot of stuff happening. Obviously, there was a lot of tension in our community, a lot of social and civil tension. And I think as a young teenage girl, and obviously feeling the pressures of being a student and a young girl, with the added pressures of living through an election that was just so tense and so heated and so racially divided, that really motivated me and empowered me to get involved and use my voice and share my perspective to anyone who would listen to me. When I joined Westford Academy, my freshman year, I joined the Human Rights Club. And I joined because I had a couple of people I really admired as part of the club's leadership, and people I really hope to emulate their actions now. And I have been part of the Human Rights Club since freshman year. I am now the president as a senior student, and right now what the Human Rights Club is, we're really leading and planning events that can help mobilize youth and better our community and foster our ideals of inclusivity, being inclusive, human rights as a whole. Some of the things that we've done, just to mention those, we've raised money for the Trevor Project. We actually teamed up with the other club I'm involved in, Gender and Sexuality Alliance. We've raised money to donate to a Boston women's shelter, as well as NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Right now, we are currently funding a project to provide different skin tone bandages for students in the Westford public school systems. And we're really trying to, go about these creative ways where we can help empower students, empower people around our community, outside of our community, and in the Massachusetts community as a whole. And a lot of other things we do include, education and advocacy. We believe that, and I personally really believe that the education aspect is so important for any type of civic engagement. And, if you're trying to involve yourself in any type of movement, because the education is, the base. That's what's going to motivate you. That's how you're going to really build your views and understand what's happening and understand what might not be happening as it should. The other club that I'm in is GSA, and while it's not completely advocacy based, it's another forum where it provides complete anonymity, confidentiality, and WA students are able to come and feel safe, feel included. GSA, Gender and Sexuality Alliance, welcomes students of all backgrounds, all identities, all sexualities, and I feel like right now in a world more divided than it should be, we need more spaces like that. So even though we are not actively planning events all the time or hosting fundraisers, we're still doing a really important part of the civic engagement aspect, which is giving people a space to share their views, giving people a space to feel safe, secure, comfortable. And I think that that's another thing that is just super important for any type of progressivism, for any type of social justice as a whole. Additionally, something that is more of a personal endeavor includes something that I've been working on for the past few months. So I actually, when I was not able to return to my job, my part-time sales associate job in the summer because of the pandemic, I started a small online thrift shop. And through this thrift shop, I'm able to really practice my values of sustainability, raising money and donating part of the profits to organizations like the ACLU, which I feel very strongly passionate towards. And this is something that not all students will do, not all students are interested in doing, but because I'm really interested in sustainability, fashion, making money because I was not able to make money in an in-person store location, I really harnessed my values, my dedication, my drive into making it a more positive initiative. I know that a lot of the times when we talk about civic engagement and the social justice movement as a whole, a lot of people may think and go directly to that means planning protests, that means planning events and demonstrations. And while it does include that, it's not exclusive to that. Civic engagement and these movements are so much more than that. It's doing your individual research. It's subscribing on and following on Instagram news sources that you want your news from. It's reading a lot, it's talking, it's having the tough conversations with family members who, may not understand something the way you do, sharing your experiences and anecdotes if you feel comfortable with that. I think that, civic engagement can be a really scary thing for people who want to get involved. However, they don't know how to get involved. So I think that just some advice for me, and as someone who got involved before I was able to vote, before I turned 18, whatever you're passionate about, you can make something out of that. When I was in my junior English class, my teacher talked a little about fast fashion, and she was very into fashion, but she did not want to support the fast fashion movement, which is the really unsustainable way that a lot of fashion businesses are producing a vast amount of clothing pieces and just not making them in a sustainable way. And we talked about that. And just a small sliver of that conversation then harnessed some new drive to do something about sustainability. So even small individual conversations that you may have with a teacher, a peer, a friend, a family member, those can really motivate you and be your driving forces to get involved at any level, the local level, the friend level. So I completely encourage anyone to do things that they enjoy, and make whatever out of it that you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Hannah. I think that was really inspirational. And our next panelist is Toby Bluestein. Toby is very involved in advocating for climate change awareness. He is a member of the Westford Littleton Sunrise Movement aimed at protecting our climate. So welcome, Toby.
Hi. I want to, as Hannah did, thank you so much for inviting me and letting me be a part of this, because this is so important. So yeah, do I just talk?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to touch upon some of the ways that you got involved with the Sunrise Movement and raising awareness on climate change, or how others similarly could get involved, that'd be really awesome.
All right, cool. So I, as I'm sure most of us did, had the vague understanding of climate change, bad, happening, but it's far away. It's polar bears. It's not here. It's not now, except of course, over the past few years, there's been a big growing understanding that it's actually not just polar bears. It's actually here, and it's actually now, and it's actually hurting people. And so when the International Panel on Climate Change report came out in 2018, this really helped me. I've spoken with other people that it's also really helped them understand the gravity of the situation. And it really motivated a lot of people, including myself, to get involved. So with the combination of that report coming out, and I saw I saw an action that was done by the Sunrise Movement in Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office, demanding that she support strong climate action in the form of a Green New Deal to protect vulnerable communities, to protect young people, marginalized groups. And this was a really well done action too. So that really drew me into the Sunrise Movement, and following that, I signed up for a lot of trainings with them online and a few in-person ones, and I learned a lot more about our situation. And this really drove, and because of the way that Sunrise is set up, it's decentralized, so it's really easy to just start a local branch of it with a few friends and try and get your towns or cities or wherever you live to get to work towards these goals. So I, along with some other friends in Westford and Littleton, started the Sunrise Westford Littleton Hub. And that was a really awesome, that was a really wonderful moment. And at the first meeting, seeing all these people who, like myself, wanted things to do, and we didn't really have a way to do them. So we found a way to do them, and we made a way to do them. And we've partnered a lot with some other groups in town, with Indivisible Westford and Westford Climate Action, and we worked with the First Parish Church as well for a rally on the Westford Common, to really start up momentum for some stuff that we were going to be doing over the next year, which was really, we got some really amazing stuff done over the next year, working with Westford Climate Action, and Indivisible. We talked with the Energy Committee and worked to get the Select Board to approve a new electrical contract for the town, with much higher levels of renewables, and with the options for people to have even higher levels of renewable energy going to their homes. And this change went into effect this January, so you can have change faster than you would think, and like more real actual change than you would imagine you can. And another similar thing like that is we worked with Westford Climate Action throughout the year, throughout the year last year, to like first to workshop and then talk with the select board about and popularize the net zero by 2050 resolution, which Westford Climate Action got passed at the town meeting, I believe in October, and that like created new committees. And as someone said earlier, Westford is looking at how are we going to get to net zero by 2050, and we're like, there's actual change being brought about by working with other people and other groups to make our town and this world better.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much, Toby. And I really appreciate all the work that you're doing with climate change and Sunrise Movement. I think that's really amazing. And last but not least, we have one of our founders of the Westford Coalition for Change joined with us today, who will remain anonymous. They gained tremendous momentum this past summer and helped students of all backgrounds come together to raise awareness on social justice issues and discrimination-based issues surrounding our community. Unfortunately, we cannot have them pinned just because they want to remain anonymous, and so it will just be spotlighted on me. Welcome, Westford Coalition for Change.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say again, thank you to Peggy and the League of Women Voters for giving me the opportunity and giving our entire group the opportunity to be able to talk to you all. Again, I apologize for the video being off just for anonymity. But I'm going to be talking about some personal experiences and then also our group as a whole. So personally, and I know some of the members of our group also share this as well, we have gotten involved based off of our personal conversations with friends or family that have always revolved around activism, social/economic issues. I didn't really have an opportunity or any other opportunities to get involved. However, I realized that after having so many conversations with other people that were really discouraging and hurtful to me as a person of color, Hi, can you guys still hear me now?
Yes, you're good now.
All right. Should I just continue from the beginning or should I just keep going?
You can do whatever you want. You can feel free to pick up.
Okay, I'll just start again really quickly. So it's not only me, but a lot of people from our group also have felt the same way about how we have always had conversations about social/economic issues and activism with our close friends and family. However, personally for me at least, I've always felt discouraged because of my age, and especially when I started having these conversations, especially as a freshman, I felt like I didn't have as many opportunities or that my age restricted me from participating in any community activism or having these really, really important conversations. However, as a POC, I have had so many conversations surrounding race and other social and economic issues. And I realized that I wanted to be able to share my experiences and share my voice with a larger group of people so that others did not have to unknowingly or knowingly hurt POC and other minorities. And so in May and June, around that time, I was having a lot of these tough conversations, and I realized that it was a time to actually try to speak up. So I joined a group of fellow seniors at Westford Academy to create this group page so that we could
Westford Coalition for Change, I think your audio is cutting off a little bit.
Hi, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, you're good now.
So sorry about that.
Okay.
I'll just pick up from where I was last. I think I was talking about how I got involved. So I realized that I wanted to speak up and use my voice even more.
I'm sorry, I think the audio is off again.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yep, you're good now.
So sorry. So basically, I joined so that we could continue our goal of raising minorities' voices and also helping to provide resources for others to educate themselves on specific topics that they may not have known about before, or may have been whitewashed, or any other reason that they may not have known about it. And so a lot of this work was based on researching and making sure we were being extremely clear in the way that we were presenting our content. And luckily, we had gained a lot of support. And it was really encouraging to see that a lot of people truly wanted to learn and educate themselves. And we have received a lot of DMs and questions in the comments and other messages asking about specific sources and other ways to get involved, which is really, really great. And I think one of our biggest successes is that we were able to facilitate these tough conversations with people that they're having with not only their friends, but family members and any other people that they come in contact with. And I think it really shows that they're opening their minds to minority struggles and experiences, and really thinking about their actions and maybe reconsidering their actions that they're taking, and just trying to make a more welcoming community through their own actions, which is great. Also, we were given great opportunities to get in touch with local town leaders to discuss our content and also our stances on specific racial issues and social justice issues, which are great because they really show that they were listening to us. And we only hope
I think you just cut off again.
this. So we kind of said that it was a great idea to start talking with friends and start researching and educating yourselves a lot, especially from the groups who are directly affected by certain topics that you may be researching or educating yourself about. It's really great to hear from their point of view and hear their specific experiences. Can you all hear me?
Yes, you're good now.
All right. Just the last thing I was saying is that it's a really good idea to try to contact or try to learn from people who are directly affected by the topics that you are trying to educate yourself on, and to really surround yourself with the right people and the right resources to make sure that you are learning at the very center. And yeah, that's all I had. Hopefully you were able to hear some parts of it. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I think we all heard definitely the majority of it. So thank you so much. And so again, thank you, Hannah, Toby, and Westford Coalition for Change, all for sharing your stories. School is a great environment for finding your voice and making a difference, as with all the clubs that you guys have been part of, as well as starting your own. And so odds are you'll find other students who have the same interests and passions as you do. And with that, this wraps up our Get Involved in Government Youth Edition event. We wanted to thank all of our panelists for taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend this event and sharing your experiences with us. We also wanted to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this event, as well as Westford Cat for recording this and broadcasting it on YouTube in the upcoming days. And before we close off, I also wanted to personally thank Miss Cole, Miss Tonakam, again, I'm so sorry for butchering your last name, and Miss Miller for helping to organize and plan this whole event. This would not have been possible without their hours and hours of preparation and efforts. So thank you. And in the chat, we will also send the link to the League of Women Voters website, as well as information for our student video contest again, in case any of you are interested. Thank you again for attending and have a great rest of your night. Thank you, everyone.